Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 18. So we're 18 weeks in now. I've been doing this for about 14, 15 weeks. It's been a pretty interesting season CFL wise. At this point in time, we have to keep in mind that a lot of teams have clinched at least their playoff spots, playoff berths, I should say. So there will be teams here and there that are resting players. We saw that last week with Chad Kelly. Unfortunately, did miss that update, but I'll be trying to link as many as the depth charts, the official depth charts, in as possible down in the comments below. So do look out for that. Also be sure to check out this sheet as the week moves along, but that is up on my Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSports. You'll get access to that. You'll get access to NFL DFS, and we'll get NBA DFS coming right around the corner, some fantasy football content as well. But without further ado, this is kind of how I'm going to structure today's video. We'll go through each team, the notable players, whether or not I would play them in GPP, cash game format, a pay down option, a dart throw, contrarian option, or anything else like that. But with that being said, we're going to get started with the Toronto Argonauts. So last week we did see Cameron Dukes get the start. He actually played reasonably well. So if he starts, it's kind of a GPP option. We saw Brian Scott get a couple throws in at the end of the game as well. If Chad Kelly gets the start at $9,200, probably going to ultimately be a cash game option. There is some kind of optimism out there that in the home games, Chad Kelly might get the start just to boost that Toronto attendance. And sometimes they do have a little bit harder time drawing attendance. So just be on the lookout for that. Once that official depth chart is out, I'll leave that down in the comments below. Then at running back, we got AJ Alouette. He is listed as no injury designation. Once again, practicing full all week due to that foot injury, which was kind of him resting 2 weeks ago. Did end up playing last week. Wasn't like super involved though, so kind of play at your own risk this week at $9,200. If you want to play like McMahon behind him at $4,800, take a shot there. You could definitely do that as well. And then obviously we have Javon Leake just kind of as that kick and punt returner if you want to take some upside there, since you do get points for kick and punt return in the CFL DFS. In terms of wide receivers, Curly Giddens still on IR. Cam Phillips is on IR out once again due to his groin injury. So Coxie's there at $7,600 GPP option if you want to stack him. Still drawing a decent amount of targets, but another guy that could get rested a little bit more down the stretch. Not really interested in David Unger III at $4,500. Tommy Neal, DeJuan Brissett, both kind of pay down options at this point in time at $3,700 and $3,800 respectively. Those would be the main two wide receivers that I would be getting for Toronto once again this week. Then last week we saw Jeremiah Haydell operate as kind of that final wide receiver for them after Rajay Johnson did go on the 6-game IR. So, another guy that's out there, but just a complete dart throw punt play if you really wanted to get there. So mainly from Toronto, get to a little bit of the quarterbacks. Both have decent price tags, just depending on what that depth chart ultimately looks like. You can take some shots at running back if you really want to do that, but mainly looking at pay down wide receivers and DeMonte Coxie from that wide receiver position. And then for that Argonauts defense, $5,000 GPP option versus the Elks could be a decent matchup here. So do like them, probably be even with the field on them this week. And then we're going to move down to the Elks. And I forgot to put the GPP down next to Trey Ford's option. So does have some rushing upside, which obviously gives him a pretty safe floor and does give us some pretty good upside overall coming off that bye week. So hopefully this Elks team looks pretty strong. They are pretty banged up at this point in time, but mainly on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. Could open up some opportunities for him. If you really want to play Kevin Brown at $8,400, you could probably do it as well. Was all right versus Toronto earlier this season. Been a little bit more involved and a little bit better as of late outside of their most recent game. So definitely could have some exposure there. And I think Trey Ford could even be a guy that maybe if you get a little bit overweight to the field on, could get a little bit of leverage there if you wanted to do so. Wide receiver position, it's mainly Eugene Lewis, Kyron Moore, and Dylan Mitchell all have a little bit of upside. Eugene Lewis would be my favorite at $7,700. Still maybe a little bit overweight to the field on him. Probably in line with the field on Kyron Moore, a little bit underweight on Dylan Mitchell, although he has had some big games here and there. The rest of the guys, not really too interested in. They're all really cheap, but none of them have been doing too much as of late. We still got Steven Dunbar on IR, so can't really say too much there. That Elks defense, $3,200 pay down option. They're going against the Argonauts. There's lots of players that are either out or banged up this week for their defense, so could be pretty interesting there. If it's Cameron Dukes starting, probably a little bit more interesting as kind of that pay down option. If it's Chad Kelly, probably not going to get to as much. But if it's Cameron Dukes or Brian Scott, I would have some interest in them and kind of playing them a little bit overweight to the field this week. Then we move down to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Zach Collaros, $11,800. Still like him very much as a GPP option. No major leans on him. Probably be in line with the field on him once again this week. Brady Oliveira, $11,400 GPP option, cash game option if you really want to go there. Obviously, it's a pretty high price tag, but he's been extremely efficient as of late, so I definitely do like him. Wide receiver wise, Nick Dominski, Dalton Shane would be the two guys I'm getting to the most as GPP options, $11,500 and $10,400 respectively. I'll be overweight to the field on Dominski, probably in line with the field on Dalton Shane. We saw Kenny Lawler have good games so far this season, but not as much as of late. So at $11,000, probably be underweight to the field on him. And we did get news that Jerrion Grant, who's been out for quite some time with an ankle injury, was able to practice in full all week, although they only practiced 2 days this week, was officially listed as questionable, but he is listed on the depth chart, so he should be back as their kick and punt returner this week. So if you want to kind of roll him out as a pay down option, he is a really solid punt returner, so you could definitely do that, but there is some risk and his first game back. For the Blue Bombers defense going against the BC Lions, not really too interested there, so it'd be a defense that I'm not really playing personally this week. And then on the BC side, Vernon Adams all the way up $13,000. He's been one of the most consistent and highest scoring quarterbacks on the season. So GPP option there obviously couldn't be a cash game with that giant price tag that he does have. If you want to go with Tyquan Mazzell this week at running back, you could at $9,800. I'm not really getting there too much myself personally. Dane Evans, the backup quarterback, is back this week. He was dealing with a back injury last week. And then fullback David Mackey is expected to be back after practice in full all week with a knee injury. Doesn't mean too much for DFS purposes, but just another note. And then we get down to the wide receivers. So, like I said last week, Lucky Whitehead hadn't been quite as involved as of late, $8,500 not getting there. Mainly, I want to look at Alexander Hollins, Dominique Rhymes, who returned last week from his knee injury, and Keon Hatcher as all GPP options. Probably be in line with the field on Hollins, maybe make a little bit of a stance with Rhymes, and then maybe a little bit overweight to the field on Hatcher, but if you are stacking him with Vernon Adams, that's over half your budget right there. So just keep that in mind as you're building out your lineups. You're going to have to find value elsewhere. And then kind of the other notable injury for their wide receiver unit is Javon Catoy at $4,000. Was limited in practice on Wednesday due to a knee injury. He is listed officially as questionable. And last week we saw him playing ahead of Justin McInnis. If Catoy misses, then McInnis would probably step up into that spot and be a little bit more involved, but at $6,000, not anybody that we really want to get to. For the Lions defense, $4,100 versus the Blue Bombers, not really getting there this week personally. For the Tiger Cats, going to be a very interesting situation at quarterback this week. So we saw a little bit of Taylor Powell last week. We saw a little bit of Matthew Schultz. So we'll see who ultimately is listed as the starter on the depth chart. That's going to be one that we pay attention to. If it's Matthew Schultz at $8,500, do have some interest in him in GPP formats. Will Levi Mitchell was limited in practice so far this week. They did officially remove him from the 6-game IR. So it sounds like he should be back if he's either the backup quarterback or the third quarterback this week. And then James Butler at $10,500. Still think he's a very solid GPP option. He's one of the better running backs in the entire league. He's had up and down weeks so far this season, but I still like taking my chances. Probably going to be a little bit overweight to the field on him once again this week. And then for wide receivers, they got Tim White as kind of a GPP option at $10,800. Been a little bit better as of late. Obviously, the quarterback situation could affect him just a little bit. And then we have Terry Godwin coming off a pretty strong week, $6,600 GPP option, but also monitor his injury status. He didn't practice on Tuesday, was limited on Wednesday due to a shoulder injury, so we'll keep an eye out on that. And then really not getting to Omar Bayless. Maybe if Godwin's out, then you could take a couple stabs here and there. Keandre Smith at $3,600, very much a GPP paydown option after the last 2 weeks where he's been pretty solid. And then obviously if Godwin misses, should have some more targets to go around. And then last but not least, we have Tyler Ternosky at $2,500. Did recently return, but has not practiced so far this week due to shoulder injuries. So we will keep an eye out on his stats, see how that ultimately pans out. And then for the Tiger Cats defense, $4,000 GPP option versus the Rough Riders. I think they're a reasonable option. Not really going out of my way to get to them, so probably in line with the field this week overall. And then we have Jake Dolegala at $8,400. GPP option. He's throwing for a lot of yards. The touchdowns aren't always there, so a little bit of risk there, but still has some upside at that too. At running back, we saw Jamal Morrow practice in full so far on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. We'll monitor his status if he's out once again. We'll get to some Frankie Hickson and then Thomas Bertrand Hooden behind him. Did score 2 touchdowns last week, but wasn't too involved otherwise. So we'll just keep an eye on that situation. For the wide receiver unit, I kind of have Tevin Jones, Schaefer Baker, and Samuel Elamus all listed as GPP options this week. We did get news yesterday that Tevin Jones did miss practice due to a hamstring injury, so probably going to take him off the GPP for this week. Maybe, you get to a little bit of Sean Bain Jr. in that situation, but Mainly interested in Schaefer Baker, Samuel Emilus at this point in time. Probably in line with the field on both. Maybe a little bit overweight to the field on Schaefer Baker. And then Jarrett Stearns, $4,300. Really been turning around once again last couple of weeks. So pay down option there, $4,300. Probably going to get overweight to the field on him as we're going to be looking for some cheaper options once again this week. And then, as always, Mario Alford's there at $3,100. If you want some kick and punt return points, maybe he takes the touchdown back to the house. He is obviously one of the better returners in the entire CFL. And then for the Rough Riders defense, $3,900. Not really getting to them this week. They're going against the Tiger Cats. Should be some opportunities there, but they really do have a lot of players banged up at this point in time, and that could potentially miss this game on the defensive side of the ball. And then last but not least, we have a Monday game, so we don't have any injury report for this game at all. Should make it pretty interesting for the slate overall. I believe it is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend, so the viewers out there that are watching in Canada, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. Second of all, if you're not watching in Canada, that's just kind of how this slate ultimately did get structured. But we do have the Monday game, so Cody Fajardo here at $8,900. Pretty solid game last week versus Ottawa, but not really too much upside here at this point in time. William Stanback at running back, $7,500. As long as Walter Fletcher's not active for game day, like him as a GPP option, maybe a little bit overweight to the field. And then for the wide receiver unit, we saw a lot of them banged up last week. So Austin Mack didn't play, and Chandler Worthy, the returner, did not play as well. So we're going to monitor the injury status of those two players. Right now, I have Tyler Snead listed it as GPP option at $8,300. Might drop him down if Austin Mack ultimately does end up playing. Otherwise, we're really looking at guys like Cole Speaker as a GPP paydown option, and then Tyson Philpott, who is up to $4,900 but been playing pretty well as of late. GPP option, do like him quite a bit, especially if Austin Mack misses once again this week. And then you just have a lot of other names here. Julian Grant's been decent at times this year, but he's a guy that was banged up for a little bit as well. And then not really too interested in some of these other guys. Shedler Furvis, I believe it is, was moved back to the practice squad. James Letcher did do some punt and kick return duties in place of Chandler Worthy last week. So maybe a dart throw there if you really want to go there if Worthy's out once again. But we're not going to get that news until probably way after lock at this point in time. And then we're going to move down to the Alouettes defense. I think they're a cash game option at $4,800. Do like them quite a bit. Probably overweight to the field. Had a really strong week versus Ottawa last week and earlier this season. And then we're going to move down to the Redblacks. Not too interested in Dustin Crum. He would mainly be like a contrarian play at $10,000. Hopefully he gets to some of that rushing upside. But we did see a little bit of Nick Arbuckle late in that game too as well. So we'll just keep an eye out on that situation. Devontae Williams at running back. Kind of a GPP option there at $7,700. A couple of strong weeks for him as of late. And then for wide receivers, if you really want to throw like a Justin Hardy or an Ackland out there, you could. Same thing with Shaq Evans, but not really getting there too much. Braylon Addison would be the one main guy at $3,500 is kind of a paydown option. And then for the Redblacks defense, $3,400. Like if you really want to roll them out as a contrarian option, you could do it, but not really getting there myself personally versus the Alouettes this weekend. So, or I should say this Monday, which, long weekend, you consider Monday part of the weekend as well. But with that being said, that's kind of what I have in terms of CFL DFS for week number 18. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to link the depth charts down in the comments below as well, especially with teams resting more players and everything else like that. Should be a good reference point. This sheet will be updated in the coming days, so be sure to check that out on Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSports. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to CFL DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, MLB DFS is over, so we're going to have a little bit of a break there till we get over to some NBA DFS. But we got CFL DFS video going up once a week, typically on Thursdays at this point in time. And then we'll have some NFL DFS content coming out as well. I got my player pool up on Patreon for that. I got cheat sheets up over on the sports affiliation website, so be sure to check it out over there. And then I'll be doing an NFL DFS video this week. Was planning on doing it last Saturday, but, was kind of feeling under the weather, so I do apologize for that. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. If you are interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out BetUS, Parlay Play, and PrizePicks. There are links down in the description below. If you use them or the promo code, you'll get a first match deposit bonus. Definitely a good way to get started over there. Helps you guys out a little bit, helps me out a little bit on the side as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you watching this video at this point in time. Definitely does mean a lot to me. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter what day you're watching this video on. A really good weekend, and if you're in Canada this weekend, a pretty good Thanksgiving weekend as well.